So I work as a research associate at UNU-WIDER, and this is the project with the Uganda Revenue Authority. Nicholas Museke is here, who is part of the project, and Joseph Okello. And also we have a colleague from ICTD, Adrian Lees, who works on this project. So I'm looking at not the personal income tax, the value-added tax this time. So enforcing the value-added tax through electronic invoicing in Uganda. So a little bit motivation why this is important. So we know that the VAT is widely adopted in low-income countries, where it typically contributes quite large amount on the total tax revenues. So there has been estimates around 35% in general. And in recent years, there has been more implementation of real-time information trail of VAT, and that has been digitalized in many countries, especially in Eastern Africa. There has been in some other countries than Uganda who has done the similar type of reform. And there is expectation about the digitizing the paper trail. They expect, or people expect, that it promises improved efficiency of VAT, it enhanced probability of detecting evasion, so improving the welfare in that way that people are paying their fair share, and also in that regard increased tax revenues. And also there is, by automating this invoice matching and making invoices harder to forge, the scope for firms to over-report purchases, so basically inflating VAT paid on inputs or under-report sales, suppressing VAT due, is expected to reduce. So we are looking at, is this the case in case of Uganda? And our reform, what we look at, is in electronic fiscal receiving and invoicing system that collects invoice information from VAT-registered taxpayers in real time in Uganda. And EFRIS can be accessed through various platforms. So this is not only EFTs, as in some countries maybe. So there is different platforms what firms can choose to use. So one of the biggest is firms' invoicing system, S2S, which is the system-to-system platform. It basically automates the information sharing from firms' invoicing system directly with EFRIS, so URA system. So it's that kind of automated, and firms doesn't need to do that kind of manual filling the forms exercise. So there's other options for those firms who do not use this kind of platform. So there's downloadable software by URA, this kind of desktop app, where people still need to fill manual information of invoices, and other platforms like URA web portal, which is also very much used, is also a little bit manual information exercise for invoices in that platform. And then there is also a smaller portion of electronic fiscal devices used, but the take-up of those hasn't been that large in case of Uganda. And URA basically uses these EFRIS invoices to verify VAT sales and input credits, and those can be only validated using EFRIS invoices nowadays. Here is a little bit about, this way. So here is a little bit about how this has been presented in media and in the public sphere. So we have seen in last year there has been a lot of misunderstanding of EFRIS, I would say, in the small traders. When URA started enforcing EFRIS usage in smaller traders, there has been protest. There has been closed shops, especially in last year, April. Even Museveni came on board and say his thoughts about the EFRIS and saying that you still need to pay VAT for the public goods and for the country. And basically there is URA have defense a lot about the implementation of the EFRIS, and also there has been a huge effort on tax education in the different social media, but I think there has been other tax education efforts in publicly on the ground, and there has been a lot of misunderstanding that EFRIS is a new tax on VAT, even if it's just a way to collect the VAT in the digitalized format. And this has been a lot of attention in the last years, and that's why we think that it's important to look at what are the impact of this in both VAT sales and for the Uganda Revenue Authority and revenue generation. So the EFRIS, this is not the new reform in that way, that it's already started 2020 as a pilot program, and the registration for EFRIS were mandated by 31st of December 2020. And after that, VAT refunds claims in September 2021 must be reported by EFRIS invoices, and the enforcement actions first started in November 2021. Still, there was a little bit lower take-up or usage of EFRIS. I will show soon some statistics about that. But in 2020, there was output tax validation started, and basically that means that your sales cannot be less than what is in your EFRIS records. And then, in which we are especially interested, there was in 2020 April that kind of gazette for bigger taxpayers to start using system to system, so the implementation with your business platform for 5,000 taxpayers. I don't go for details, but they are there if you are interested in. So there was basically larger firms were mandated to use EFRIS in this system-to-system format. And it's covered, the URA identify around 5,000 taxpayers who should start using the system-to-system, and they almost visited or reached everyone, so there was around 550 taxpayers also physically visited. And some were exempted from these requirements, and there was in the end about 4,000 deemed to eligible and told to shift to this system-to-system platform. And it continued with other kind of improvements. So there was input credit validation started November 2022, mobile app platform rollout in September 2023, and then finally in December 2023 there was pre-filling of VAT returns from the EFRIS invoices. Our interest time period is ending on 2023. So what we are looking at is EFRIS adoption here in this figure, so we can see between different platforms. So you can see here that the web portal has the biggest adoption. So there is basically number of firms who use web portal is the largest compared to S2S platform. So what we can see here is that there is a jump around the enforcement started or the mandation started in Gazette. So we can see that there is some change on the implementation of that platform. And what we are using URA data, basically covering the years of interest and also pre-years. And we are using different sources, and we use mainly descriptive methods at the moment, but we are looking at using the difference approach compared to EFRIS platform. So this is the work in progress compared to maybe other projects which are already ended. So what we are seeing EFRIS usage. So we can see here that 95% of VAT taxpayers registered for EFRIS, as seen here in this figure, here the registered number, but how many really used, and this is very loose, kind of like if you have one receipt through EFRIS, you are user. So this is very loose way of defining users, and we see that there is much less actual users than what are registered for EFRIS. And especially only 60% of taxpayers uses invoices regularly. And what we can see is that the increased monthly VAT declaration after the EFRIS, so there has been much more tax returns coming to URA after the EFRIS implementation, which could be seen as a good thing that people are reporting more. And what we are seeing that EFRIS sales, as it should be, are aligning well with the VAT sales, so EFRIS sales shouldn't be never larger than VAT, so you can report more than what you have in EFRIS in VAT returns. And what we are seeing in the more output, so this is now the sales, so we can see that there is quite same trend after the EFRIS implementation, but what we can see here is the VAT due is there is a downward trend, decreasing trend on that. And what we are seeing here is the share of firms filing negative is increasing here after EFRIS. So they are negative offshore, offset liability, and then there is a zero is quite same. It's jumped at some point, but it's stayed back to the earlier trend. And we think that it could be more that resulting more negative VAT liabilities. And here, here we are looking at different platforms. I know I don't have probably much more time. So we are looking at different platforms, how they change over time, the usage of adoption of different platforms. So we see that the system-to-system increased after the mandate. And also here we can see the invoices through system-to-system increased quite remarkably. And web portals stayed quite similar. So that's the difference between different platforms. And what we have seen is that around 20% of firms switch EFRIS platforms at least once. And here is that, but still the majority of firms are using only one or two platforms as the main platforms. And only 74 taxpayers who were gazetted or mandated are not anymore, or not yet appearing as EFRIS register, so very few didn't adopt any EFRIS. And we can see that there is some non-compliance in gazetted firms. By the end of June 2023, approximately 2,300 taxpayers on that mandation list were still using web portal as their main platform. And what we are looking at is we try to use this as a difference in difference approach. This is just fresh figures from last week. So we look at some trends. So we saw that there was quite, the sales on the mandated firms are much larger than all other firms, but there is also some downward trend on those who were mandated in VAT due before the mandation has increased. But of course, there is obvious pre-trend problem here. And we try to look at that a little bit further, dividing the mandated firms to those who take up the system-to-system and those who still use the web portal, so there is deviation on trends. And same with those who shift to the different platform where mandated are different trends with those who are still web users and those who were no switching. And the key takeaways, now I'm in the end. So what we have learned already by this descriptive evidence that, and by the public action, that tax education is really important when you introduce these new digital platforms. And it should be usually combined with some kind of enforcement that people are really taking up the new tools and to increase the usage. And different digital platforms can have different impacts. Obviously, there is more usage through different systems than the others, and improved digital systems in tax administration are not immediately leading to revenue gains, as we have seen the VAT due is declining after EFRIS. So, thank you.